what we're going to be covering today, and I'm going to hand over to James in just a second, but we're going to be going over what the OpenAthens reports show in terms of your patron or user usage, how you mark specific attributes as reportable in order for them to show up in your reports, so how you do this within the schema editor. And we're going to touch on at the end a new OpenAthens feature called the Reporting API, which allows you to extract your OpenAthens data into existing data visualization software. We're going to touch on that at the end, but that's not really the main point of this webinar. It's mostly about increasing your confidence and your understanding of how you generate your own reports. And we'll just kind of touch on that at the end. So I will pass over to James, and James will kind of be demoing this entire webinar, so you can watch along real time. Yeah, cool. I'll hand you over to James.
Dear Sophie. Hello, everybody. And yes, thank you for joining us today. So as Sophie said, I'm going to be jumping in and showing you a demo of the reporting area and just hoping, to increase that confidence so you know how to use it more and really what you can get out of it. Because obviously it's great to know that people are using your resources, but what actually could you use this data for? So for this, I'm going to use a live demo account, so one of our customers, and so it should hopefully be quite easy to replicate some of what I do today on your own in your own admin area. So let me now switch screens and we should jump straight into the org. So hopefully now you can see the admin area of an account. Might look familiar to you. So yours would obviously look something like this, but obviously your name will be replaced up here. So I'm going to be using the Clinical Knowledge Network, and they're a customer of ours based in Australia. They're a healthcare provider down there. So the first thing you want to do is gaining access then to those that reporting area. So there are two ways to it. You've got the statistics tab here, which is sort of reporting, or there is also this little tab button up in the top right there, which if I hover over, it will say reporting. So if I now click on that tab, it takes you to the reporting dashboard. And so this homepage here, this just gives you a really good overview and oversight of what's happening. So if you just want a quick glance, get some quick numbers, this is what's here to show you. You've got, for example, the top resources. So that's really good to know. Oh, what's my top 5? Well, there they are in the last 30 days. It tells you which ones are the most popular in that 5 days and the total sign-ins to them. You've got total authentication. So this has been done for the last 24 hours, but you can see it's very customizable. This you can switch to different sort of time spans, days and things, just to see what's going on. And with total authentications, you can kind of see that as almost like usage, if you like. That's the total number of times a user was authenticated with OpenAthens. And then you've got here your total accounts. So this was taken at the end of day yesterday. There was 99 total accounts within this service. And then also quite interesting here is just a sort of a global heat map of where your users are logging in from. So as I mentioned, this is an Australian-based company, so obviously that's where we expect most usage to come from. And there are obviously a few more. So this is probably for me doing similar demos here in the UK and also in the States there, and there's some from India too. And that's good to just see. That can really help show you the kind of the impact that your library has, the reach, should I say. Sometimes it can be quite interesting to know that actually your users are accessing your content, not just from within your country, but also maybe if they're on holiday, or because you do have those international students or members or affiliated members of your institution, that they are accessing the content, when they are away and at home and stuff. So yeah, it just helps you to see that impact and the reach. You can use that to show the importance of the library. It can also then maybe touched on as well, maybe as a little bit of a security thing if required, but it's not, ideally, it's not really meant for that. It could just highlight maybe something going on there. So that's the home page. That's just giving you a really nice little simple overview of your accounts. And then on the left here, you've got the Data Explorer area. And so from here, we've got accounts and resources. So it's split into 2 tabs. And accounts is more about your users. So you can kind of see what type of account they are. So if we click on here, it breaks down into totals, authentications, and usage. So totals, that is going to be the total number of accounts. It's kind of like a split of what we've got along the top there of those 3 initial widgets. Authentications, that's kind of people logging into OpenAthens, and then usage. So this is then going on to the resources as well, and all the authentications happening there. So let's.
Sorry, James. Sorry, James. Got a quick question before you move on, because I know you're about to go into the separate reports. So got a question here. Where it says sessions by country, is that based on IP address to work out the locations?
So it's, yes, done via the browser IP in that sense. So I'm not as totally sure on the technology there. It's not really an OpenAthens bit that's drawing that in. So it is just whenever you use the internet and you're using a browser, often things can pick up the IP of where that's coming from, where that user's coming from, and that is what we essentially are doing in that part.
Cool, thank you.
And so yeah, so let's then, going into that, we've got the totals. So if we go into totals, this will look slightly different depending on your setup of OpenAthens. So there's plenty of 101s we've done on this about how you could have a directory connection within your OpenAthens, or you might create the OpenAthens accounts yourself. So I'm not going to delve into those here. CKN, what I will say is that they do create the OpenAthens accounts themselves for their users. So they give them a username and password. They don't have that connection. So that's why, as you'll see here, there's that personal tab, and that's where the most number of users accounts are. So if I just look at the whole organization at this part, you can see that number's now jumped up to 13,000 odd accounts. That is the number of accounts that this one is using. If you wanted to know more about account types, I say the two main ones are personal or a directory local account. They will be listed here. Those are the two which will always have the highest numbers, but there also are other types such as organization, access, and self-registration if you've got one of those set up. If you'd like to know more about those, let us know. We can either do a little session on it during one of these 101s, or your account manager can help break them down. But this, just giving you a good overview of what's happening there. This change at the end is kind of over this time span. So we're looking at the last 31 days. There's been a drop in 114 accounts. So if you change this, to example, for the whole year, you could have a look to see how growth changed during that year. So if it went up from the start to the end, you could look at that over a couple of years maybe, and then you could see how the library usage and the number of users is actually, the number of people using OpenAthens is growing, which you would expect if your library is growing. And then that also can help through peaks and troughs as well. So if you looked at a whole year, you might have more users at one point than you do at another point in the year. And that's, just helping you then to understand how you might be able to manage that internally for the next coming year if you were seeing trends. So that's, using sort of total accounts, just actually the number of users within the OpenAthens system. So that, so you can break down those into other sort of accounts as well and types, which I'll touch on in a little bit more, but that's just breaking it down into some other information. The next bit then is authentication. So this is then people trying to log into OpenAthens itself. So there's a drop off here. We don't put in live information. There is a lag on the data we're putting in. So today's information hasn't gone in. So if I just change this back a day, so if I go back to the 25th here, so now we're looking at the last month, you can see that's all tidied up, and it gives you a more kind of accurate read through those last 30 days of the usage. And so authentications, what we are logging here is people going into OpenAthens and which ones are successful, and then also at the bottom here which ones are not, so which ones have failed and why they failed. Was it because they had the wrong password? Is it an expired account? Is it a locked account? Again, on that part, it does depend a little bit on your setup, whether you are using OpenAthens accounts or whether you are using a local directory connection account. If you're using managed accounts, OpenAthens accounts, these ones you would expect to, you'll see a bit more information going on here because we would notify the failed passwords. And so that's just a really good understanding to see how the users are getting on with the service. And again, you can also see when they're logging in the most. So, I mean, clearly here, every Saturday, let's have a look. Yeah, every Saturday is the quietest day of the week. So that might help if you're looking to manage sort of library resources. When might you need more staff on than others? Not that this should involve much more work, but if you're seeing an increase in demand, you could expect some more questions to come in. So it's just a good idea, but if you had to manage something like that, how using these reports could help you just make those decisions. I'd also like to just touch on the dotted line here. So this is where it gets a bit, OpenAthens really comes into play, because we can give you a granularity on the actual users themselves. And so from what we're seeing here, as I'm on this Saturday, this dotted line is telling me there was 322 unique successful accesses to OpenAthens. And what we mean by unique there is then individuals. So it's 322 individuals that actually logged into OpenAthens, but it was used a total, so they're quite close together, of 392 times. So what I know now then is I've got users who are coming in multiple times into OpenAthens on that day. There are some users doing that. And so that then makes you kind of get a good idea of whether everyone's using OpenAthens, but maybe just using it a couple of times, or if you have some people who are using it loads of times and others who are not. So maybe you can reach out and ask them and find out what's going on there to see if they want to make the most of OpenAthens. So yeah, so that's then touching on the authentication, the logging into OpenAthens. And then there is usage. So in this case here, I've broken it down by job role, which just jumped ahead of me there. So I'll just start off with country. Again, as I showed earlier, we could track where that was as we expected here. We're showing where that usage is coming from. So in this case, it's down to, Australia, as we would expect the most. And there's also the States and United Kingdom, and it goes on down the list there. And so then, we can then look at that types of user. So this is where it does start to get, again, dependent on how you set up OpenAthens. You might be aware of from our further 101 webinars we've done, for example, things like permission sets and grouping, and how you can kind of, by releasing more information or giving us more information on your users, you can put them into these groups, so you can actually then report on those and restrict access to certain resources via those groups, and to get that additional information. You might, for example, we don't do this out of the box, but you could send us something that's uniquely identifiable to each of your users. So this could be a student code, it could be a username, it could be something like that, which you release to us, that then you can also make reportable in the schema editor, which I'll jump back to in just a moment. And then basically everything you do there, it will then appear in here as an option to do a report on. So in this case, they've done job roles, and if I click on the job roles, you can see they've got the registrar, pharmacist, nurse, and midwife, so that you can see how these groups of users are using OpenAthens, allowing you to know if there are certain types of users or low usage that aren't using the service, for you to then maybe reach out to them, check that they know about it, maybe there's some miscommunication, but also then to see the greatest usage and who is it by. And you might then, if I'll show you in a minute, be able to nail that down to specific resources to allow you to get cheaper subscription rates, which I'll show you once I jump into the resources tab there. So hopefully that's giving you an idea of what you can use via the accounts data explorer area, how you can see more about what's going on with your users and what type of user it is that is using your OpenAthens account. So just as I can go there, we said, well, is that a question, Sophie?
Yeah, sorry, did you know, because I popped up on the screen. Maybe that's a good way now, rather than interrupting you, I'll disappear. So you have a question from Anne. He said, why are countries coming up that no one why are countries coming up that no one logged into within the last 30 days? I think she might be, don't know if that's referring to the dashboard or if
that's true, and that is something that I will have to find out why they're not listed. What I think is happening there is we've got that information from when we first tracked and took that information. So although they haven't logged in within the first, sorry, it's taken a while to load this one. The last 30 days I'm looking at here, they have logged in from that country before that. So if I change the time span here, if I go down, you can see here there was no login from Argentina, but there may have been right at the back. But I will check on that to see why they're not, why they are showing when there is no information there to show.
Yeah.
Good
Cool.
question.
That's a very good question though from Anne.
Perfect. So as I was going to touch on with, for example, the job roles here, and how do you get that information, that sort of granular data to report on within OpenAthens. So if I jump back to the admin area, there's this handy little admin area button here, takes me back to the account. And under preferences here, we've got the schema editor. And this here then sort of is where you can see what attributes you're releasing to us. Now, there are two ways you give attributes to us. If you are creating OpenAthens accounts using the bulk upload or a self-registration, or using the add account here, the personal account. Within that, you can give us information. And that information is an attribute. So you would give us, say, a first name, last name, and email address. That's pretty standard. But you might have, for example, the country they're from. You might put in the faculty they're a part of, the department. You might ask for a postcode. You might ask for what year of study. Or, so any information that you have on your users that you put in, you can then report on that. And so it's up to you how far you go with this. And so in this case here, we've got the core attributes. So these are ones that they send to us for all of them. And in here, the different things required is that's something that OpenAthens needs. And then releasable, this is information that you would then release onto a service provider. Again, we can touch on, we've done sessions before on actually what's going on in the schema editor and how you can help manage this. And we can do that again if needed. Any questions, let us know and we can follow up about it. But what I wanted to touch on there, so this is stuff that's been used, and I could change any of this. If you look at the right here, I can use this tab here on the right to make that as a reportable option as well. So if there is a staff student number, I can mark that as I want to see that in my reports. And so if we went to the custom attributes that they've put in themselves, you can see here job role they have made reportable. So it's quite simple. Once those attributes are in there, it's just a simple case of coming to the schema editor and finding the attribute you want to make reportable and clicking mark as reportable. So let's jump back to the reports dashboard. And we'll now jump into the resources. And so now this is where you really start getting into finding out how you can use the OpenAthens information to make decisions that could help better your users, and also how you could maybe look at ways of saving money and all this sort of basically showing the value and the importance of the library to an institution, but also the importance of your subscriptions and your e-content. So let's go to the resources and then usage. And again, we're going to look at the whole organization. So I just want to touch on, this is a kind of a bit more specific to larger groups. What CKN is they are a multi-org site. So they have a top level, and then they have lots of different individual hospital sites beneath it. So where I've got this organization and all organizations is I'm looking at now every hospital site within the CKN grouping, this organization. So for a lot of you, you're just going to have one organization and that's fine. For those in a larger, maybe a consortia grouping, this is just a way of making each individual site have their own statistics, as well as you seeing yourselves as a group whole organization. So I'm going to do this from the whole organization point of view. So what we're looking at here then is that breakdown via always by job role. So let me just jump to that. It's obviously saved it from before. So what we can see here is all our resources, and it's broken down via that job role attribute that they're releasing to us. And so in this case, we've got the nurse and midwives, the registrars, and it's listed it then in the top heavier user groups. So nurse and midwives at the top, followed by registrars. So that already then you can see, right, who use my resources the most. And this is looking at all of them. So that then helps you to know maybe which groups you might need to market it, or you might want to send more information to. There are many ways you could go also use this for. So you might have a look at the year of study at a university. You might put in with their 1 year, second year, third year, and you would want to hopefully maybe see there, or actually it'd be great if they were all even, but if you had third year students, they engage with our library e-resources the most, So it's little things like that. It's just giving you an idea then of what type and what group of user is using your resources. Public libraries, for example, you might give us an area code you might release to us, so their postcode, but you might just have a certain part of it. Again, it doesn't have to be personally identifiable to an individual, but it could just be allowing us to group those users together. And you might find certain territories that your public library looks after are more engaged with your e-content than others. You might send out different sort of library content via emails to say, oh, have you seen this new resource we've got, or do you look at this resource? And then from that, you can see if there's a peak via different types of users, different groups of users in that usage to that resource. And so from that, then, you know, if your marketing information is getting through to your users, or maybe you can tweak it in certain ways to make it more promotable. So that is looking at, you know, all the resources, and then we can delve into those individual resources as well. As I know from experience here, that the Australian Medicines Handbook is a really popular resource of theirs. So just from that clicker I've done there, let me just tidy this up a bit. You can see, actually, although the nurse and midwives were the heaviest users of their resources overall, actually this resource is for the pharmacists and the registrars. Nurse and midwives, they dropped down to 471. So it's actually a bit lower usage for them in that case on that one. And this is when you can start getting really clever by having a look. And if you've got these groups set up, and I see Sophie's back.
No, carry on.
If you've got these groups these set up and you're looking at these, you might find there are certain groups of users that just don't access a resource, but you have a subscription for your whole organization to access that subscription. So now you can actually go, right, you know what, I don't need it for, say, the 1,000 users that I have it for at the moment. I only need it for this 250 who are part of this department, part of this course. And then so you can negotiate a cheaper subscription rate for them, and then use our permission sets to make sure you're not going to break that contract, that the terms of that, in order, for your users to gain access. So you're still providing that quality content, but it's just for those that need it at a reduced price, so allowing you to save money. And it means that you can offer then also more content that previously you thought, I can't afford an enterprise level subscription to that, but I could, give it to the 100 people that really they're the only 100 that need it. I can get 100 user license and then use OpenAthens again to make sure that you're offering that really unique content just to the people that need it. Yes. Is that a question then?
No, so I wanted to clarify that, if you, just to highlight that, because obviously you made a comparison with a different user group. I just wanted to reiterate that if you click the little circles to the left, the colored circles, that can change what you view in the graph. See what I mean? So you can make comparisons between, so if you want to do comparisons, but like single or double comparisons between different user groups, you can kind of customize what you see on the graph. I just wanted to make that obvious, because that's quite a key feature if you want to very closely compare resource usage between specific groups.
So yeah, well spotted. That's something I think I've just kind of
That's right,
quite a lot. It's very true. You can click as many of these as you want. The graph originally loads up with what you were last looking at. And so, if you wanted it just to stick with just two, for example, the top two there, you can compare those two much clearer. And we can look at that in bar format as well, if you like. It's up to you. There are those functionalities and options there for that. So, I mean, hopefully now you're getting an idea then of maybe, and what we can, other ideas that people use, particularly in the university space. You can take this information out of here, and you can do that via the top right here. You can see you can save a report. And so by saving a report, you can save it to your computer, where you are taking this raw data and taking it in an Excel format or a CSV file. And let's say, as I touched on with the university, if you, for example, had a student number in the reports here, you could see what their usage was like throughout their last year, or what their total usage was. And then you compare that to their grade, if you've got that from somewhere else that they got. And then from there, you can then see, and what you would hope to see, is a nice positive correlation between the usage and the end student's grade. And if you take that back to your dean, back to the head, and say, look, those that use our content, and the more content we have and the more they use, they end up with a higher grade. That's a really powerful image to show the sort of image and the importance of that library has to that student's education. So it's a way of backing it up with facts. And then you can also, though, with that information to hand, if you are looking at an individual user, or if there is specific low usage, you could then reach out to those who are having that low usage group. So is there a certain department that just aren't engaging with your resources, and just start sort of ask those questions. Why? Do you need more, do you need more assistance? Is there further training? Is this content just not useful for you? In what case, what would be useful? So it is about, although we all want to see high usage, even when there's low usage, depending on those reports the attributes you have to us, you can use that information to actually then either increase the, pick it back up, get that usage back up, and ask those questions as to why the resources are not being used. So yeah, I mean, again, that's another example of what these reports can be used for. If we go into here, there's also the way you can schedule these reports. So that is, if we click on here, you can give the report a name. And so this is Australian Medicine's Handbook by a job role. So you could save that, and you could have that appear in your inbox, whether it's weekly or daily, monthly, and you can send it to yourself, and you can also send it to other recipients in your organization as well. So there's no need to actually come in here, click around, set up the report you want. If you just want each month's usage, each month's usage of a specific resource or a specific type of report, you can set it up so you don't need to do it again and have it just as a scheduled report. And so that's a really nice handy way. You can set up as many of those as you like. Once they're all set up, they'll just keep appearing in your inbox, giving you that information right at hand. So yeah, I think that's kind of everything I did want to show on this part here. So it's back, so maybe there are some questions of the reports dashboard. Hopefully that's given you a kind of better understanding of how to use it and what you can use it for. There is something we're going to touch on with the reports API, or should we do questions first, Sophie?
Yeah, so just had one question from Mark, who says, I don't seem to be able to see the schema editor in my admin account. So can you just reiterate how you find the schema editor, and then we can work out if Mark definitely can't see that, then I can follow up with him afterwards.
Yeah. Definitely, that might be something else going on there. So yeah, back to the administration area. So on your home page of your admin area, it's under preferences, and then it's the fourth one down. It should be there's the schema editor.
Cool. So Mark, if you're still on the webinar, if you're unable to find the schema editor where it should be, please let me know, because that will be something that is wrong with your account. And I can sort that out for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. But no other questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Obviously, if you guys do have any other questions, Mark says it's definitely not there. Okay, cool. Well, Mark, I have your email after this. I will forward you on to the appropriate people to be able to help you just to work that out, because you should definitely be able to see that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So then, we can jump back to.
Yes. Okay, we'll jump back to the slides, and if we go to the next one. So because most of you answered that you were either somewhat confident, or you were aware of reports, but you kind of weren't utilizing them to the best of kind of their ability yet, this might be jumping the gun slightly, but we do have a new OpenAthens reporting API feature that allows you to download the usage data from the reports that James has just demoed, and download them into data visualization software, can't get my words out today, such as Tableau or Power BI. So I know a lot of you will be using these already, but basically this is something that was being requested by quite a lot of our customers who are kind of very confident reporting users. This is a feature that was very highly requested. So we're kind of at the beginning of this feature being available. It was only kind of created later this year, and it was still going through some kind of testing and some working out with a few pilot sites. However, if you are interested in this and you'd like to get involved and see how the reporting API might be useful for your institution, or you just want to know more about it and see how it works, please get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Love to get as many people involved. And yeah, it's a great new feature that we hope is going to kind of bring a lot of benefit to a lot of people. The best way to kind of go about this is either speaking to your account manager or emailing contact@openathens.net, in which it will kind of get routed to me and I can point you in the right direction. And we do also have a video online, which gives a very brief kind of explanation from one of our technical colleagues, who kind of talks you through, thank you, James, circling, who talks you through how to how the API will work from a kind of setup perspective. But I would like to say, because the API does require some kind of knowledge and kind of understanding of how script is kind of written and works, we are here to support you, and we don't kind of give you the key and then let you run. It's very much a collaborative effort, so we don't want to scare anyone if they're not as confident in that area, but we're here to help you.